Before we get into today's edition of Just the Truth, Mike Lindell sent me a note yesterday. He has a special for the 6-piece towel set, $25 when you use promo code Joey. Just go to mypillow.com, use promo code Joey. You'll get the $25 offer on the 6-piece towel set, and I promise you, these will be the most comfortable, the most absorbent towels that you own. mypillow.com, use promo code Joey, get the 6-piece towel set for just $25. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson Bill, but, you know, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson Bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
Lots to cover today. Former President Donald Trump said during his appearance at the National Association of Black Journalists, the convention in Chicago, that Vice President Kamala Harris has only promoted one side of her heritage, and fires back on a DEI question that led to the White House and the Harris campaign expressing their outrage over his comments. We have that for you. We learned yesterday that the alleged mastermind of the September 11th terror attacks and 2 other terrorists being held on Guantánamo Bay will be spared the death penalty under a deal with prosecutors. Details of this travesty coming up in today's show as well. Hamas's top political leader, Ismail Haniyeh, was assassinated during a visit to Iran in what the terror group claimed was an airstrike directly on his room that was conducted by Israel early yesterday morning. And in response, Iran's supreme leader ordered a strike on Israel to retaliate for assassination of Ismail Haniyeh. A video from James Copenhaver, one of the victims critically wounded on July the 13th during the assassination attempt against former President Donald Trump, shows a figure moving across the roof of the American Glass Research, the AGR building, just minutes before gunfire rang out at Trump's rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, striking Mr. Copenhaver. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre responded to comments from President Donald Trump questioning what race Vice President Kamala Harris is. The former president said that he thought she was Indian and suggested she had become black when it was politically advantageous to be black. KJP said his comments are insulting, adding no one has any right to tell someone who they are. Here's the exchange.
I can ask you about something that's happening at the NABJ right now. Donald Trump is speaking to some of the reporters who were assembled there, and right out of the gates there was what can best be described as a contentious exchange where the former president said, I'm asking this through the lens of someone who represents the president, vice president, not someone who has to speak as a campaign question. He says of Kamala Harris, the vice president, she was always of Indian heritage and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, he said, and now she wants to be known as black. So I didn't know, is she Indian or is she black? Wow. She has always, this is unclear. I respect either one. But she obviously doesn't because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn and she went black. Your response to those comments?
He is a candidate, so I'm going to be super careful. Wait, no, hold on, hold on. I have more to say. I certainly have more to say. As a person of color, as a black woman who is in this position that is standing before you at this podium behind this lectern, what he just said, what you just read out to me is repulsive, it's insulting, and you know, no one has any right to tell someone who they are, how they identify. That is no one's right. It is someone's own decisions. I'll add this. Only she can speak to her experience. Only she can speak to what it's like. She's the only person that can do that. And I think it's insulting for anybody. It doesn't matter if it's a former leader, a former president. It is insulting. And we have to put, she is the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris. We have to put some respect on her name, period.
We have to put some respect on her name, period. So here's what started the discussion. Former President Trump said during his appearance at the National Association of Black Journalists convention, of which he was invited and accepted the invitation. Vice President Kamala Harris didn't have time to go. She tried to do a virtual visit. They denied that. They opted out to do that. He said that Harris has only promoted one side of her heritage, and that she is Joe Biden's biggest DEI hire. Trump told the crowd yesterday that the vice president became a black person after years of identifying as Indian when a reporter asked him a question relating to her race. Trump was speaking again to this group of journalists when ABC News' Rachel Scott asked the former president if he agreed with Republican lawmakers who have characterized Harris as a DEI or diversity, equity, and inclusion hire. Trump replied, "I've known her for a long time, indirectly, not directly. And she has always talked of her Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage," he said. "I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black. And now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?" Well, as you can imagine, this set off a firestorm of comments, of posts on X, of response by a lot of people. Scott then told Trump that Harris has always identified as black, adding that she went to a historically black college. Trump responded, "I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't because she was Indian all the way. And then all of a sudden she made a turn and she became a black person," he said. "I think somebody should look into that." Wow. Harris's campaign communication director, Michael Tyler, released a statement almost immediately about Trump's comments. The statement said, in part, "The hostility Donald Trump showed on stage today is the same hostility he has shown throughout his life, throughout his term in office, and throughout his campaign for president as he seeks to regain power and inflict his harmful Project 2025 agenda on the American people." Now, they had to insert that Project 2025 in there. Donald Trump has nothing to do with Project 2025. And by the way, that project may be dissolving as the CEO of that group resigned this week. We'll have to talk about that in another program. The statement went on to say Trump lobbed personal attacks and insults at black journalists the same way he did throughout his presidency, while he failed black families and left the entire country digging out of the ditch he left us in. Donald Trump has already proven he cannot unite America, so he attempts to divide us. The statement went on, "Today's tirade is simply a taste of the chaos and division that has been a hallmark of Trump's MAGA rallies this entire campaign." So I guess they're throwing in the MAGA rallies, which would include anybody who's ever been to a rally in this statement as well. The statement said it's also exactly what the American people will see from across the debate stage as Vice President Harris offers a vision of opportunity and freedom for all Americans. All Donald Trump needs to do is stop playing games and actually show up to the debate on September 10th. Look, I can guarantee you Donald Trump will be at this debate if there is such a debate. So them kind of trying to entice him to the debate, they don't have to do that. Donald Trump will be there. Trump posted on Truth Social following the NABJ event, writing, "The questions were rude and nasty, often in the form of a statement, but we crushed it," all caps. In 2016, the Associated Press reported that then California Attorney General became the first Indian American to become a U.S. Senator. 4 years later, then Vice President Biden tapped Harris as his running mate in 2020. Harris was referred to as the first black woman to compete on a major party's presidential ticket. So Trump has a good question here. Which is it? Was the Associated Press wrong when they talked about the California Attorney General being the first Indian American to become a U.S. Senator? Or were they right when they reported that when Joe Biden needed a black person, and particularly a black female, to complete his ticket? Harris, born in 1964, her father was Jamaican, and her mother an Indian spent much of her formative years in Berkeley, California. Trump's running mate, J.D. Vance, fired back, saying the former president walked right into the NABJ conference and showed he had the courage to take tough questions, while Kamala Harris continues to hide from any scrutiny or unfriendly media like the coward she is. Former Presidents George W. Bush, Barack Obama, and Bill Clinton all attended the NABJ conventions in the past, either as presidents or presidential candidates. So which is it? It's a good question, isn't it? Is she black? Is she Indian? Hope you'll join the conversation today. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Send your comments to the Furman Ford text line. You can leave a quick voice message, and your emails are always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Soon going to be 4 years ago that I started my journey with PhD weight loss and nutrition. I lost 30 pounds pretty quickly, I might add, and I've been able to maintain that for almost 4 years now. It'll be 4 years coming up in July. If this is the year that you have decided that you're going to get healthy, that you're going to lose that weight, that visceral fat that's so damaging around your waist, then now's the time to start. Let me encourage you to make that call today. 864-252-4925. Set up your initial consultation with PhD Weight Loss and Nutritionist. Boy, am I glad that I met Dr. Ashley Lucas 4 years ago and that she got me on the right path to getting healthy. You're going to be able to do things that you may have thought you'd never be able to do again. Play with the kids, the grandkids, be able to hike and walk and maybe play a full 18-round hole of golf and be able to do it and not get so winded. Because when you take that excess weight off, you're just going to feel better. You're going to be able to focus. You're going to be able to sleep better. Your overall health is just going to be improved. 864-252-4925. Call, set up your initial consultation. Find them online at myphdweightloss.com. PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition, the official partner of the Clemson Tigers. The alleged mastermind of September the 11th terror attacks and two other terrorists who have been being held on Guantánamo Bay will be spared the death penalty under a deal with prosecutors, we learned yesterday. An Office of Military Commissions spokesperson, known as OMC, said the convening authority for military commissions has entered into pretrial agreements with Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, Walid Mohammed Salih Mubarak bin Atash, and Mustafa Ahmad Adam al-Hawasi, three of the co-accused in the 9/11 case. The terror suspects will be spared the death penalty as part of the plea agreement, according to the OMC, which sent a letter to victims' families yesterday detailing some of the terms of the negotiation. The letter obtained by the New York Post reads in part, in exchange for removal of the death penalty as a possible punishment, these three accused have agreed to plead guilty to all of the charged offenses, including the murder of the 2,976 people listed in the charge sheet. So let's let that sink in for a minute. Why do we care that these three terrorists have agreed to plead guilty? Why was this offer even put on the table? What do we gain, and what do these victims' families gain by having them plead guilty? Why were they not executed years ago? Quite honestly, when I first read about this, when I first received the news alert, I'm thinking, were they not executed years ago? As you can imagine, the news came as a gut punch for the families, these victims who've been holding out hope for justice for almost 2 decades now. Daniel Delara, whose twin brother, John Delara, was one of the 23 NYPD cops killed the day of the attacks, told the New York Post, "I'm very disappointed. We waited patiently for a long time. I wanted the death penalty. The government has failed us." And that's an understatement. The government has failed us. How does this happen? How does the United States government offer a plea deal to these three terrorists? Again, what do we gain from it? Typically, in a plea deal, maybe you get some additional information from them. Maybe they're helpful. They testify against others. None of that is on the table here. We don't have anything that we need from them. They're responsible for the murder of almost 3,000 Americans. Not even to think about the destruction that they caused in New York City, taking down the iconic Twin Towers in Manhattan. And we're going to give them life? OMC said the specific terms and conditions of the pretrial agreements were not immediately available. The deals are set to be officially announced sometime today, we're told, and the guilty plea hearings could take place as soon as next week, with sentencing likely to happen next summer. It was not immediately known where the men will be incarcerated following their pleas. Look, I guarantee you there's some prisoners who would love to have them as cellmates. And we could only hope that they would accommodate them. Put them in a prison. Put them in the common population, and let some good Americans, some good old boys who are in prison, handle it themselves. The defendants, including accused plotter Muhammad, stand accused of providing training, financial support, and other assistance to the 19 terrorists who hijacked passenger jets and crashed them into the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania on that fateful September 11, 2001. The three accused who have accepted the plea deal, along with Ali Abdul Aziz and Ramzi bin Ashib, were initially jointly arraigned on June 5, 2008, then again on May 5, 2012, the Department of Defense said in a statement. The OMC said it would first enter into plea deal negotiations with the suspect's defense counsel in March of 2022. Again, victims' families were outraged by the news that the death penalty was no longer on the table for the suspects. I would be outraged too. Retired police officer Jim Smith, husband of Maura Smith, the only female police officer who died on September 11th, said, "I feel like I was kicked in the, you know what." Look, I can understand it. The widower said, "The prosecution and families have waited 23 years to have our day in court to put on the record what these animals did to our loved ones. They committed the worst crime in the history of our country. They should receive the highest penalty." Retired police officer Kathy Vigiano, wife of NYPD Detective Joseph Vigiano, who was also killed on 9/11, said, "I'm angry and disappointed that enemy combatants who killed thousands of Americans in our homeland are now able to exploit the U.S. judicial system to their benefit, receiving support from American taxpayers for shelter, food, and health care for the rest of their lives." Does this make you angry as well? And I'm trying to calm down a bit. I'm trying to take a breath here and not to come across just so angry. It's hard to do, though, isn't it? My blood boiled when I learned of this. These are terrorists who took American lives, who destroyed American property, who changed our country. These three men are why you and I have to scan our luggage when we go through airports today. Why we have to be searched ourselves, why we have to walk through a scanner, a metal detector, to board an aircraft. It's their fault. It's why we had to change our way of life because of these three terrorists. And now they're going to sit in one of our prisons, and as this survivor said, as this lady, this wife whose husband was killed by one of these terrorists, says that the American taxpayer is going to have to shelter them, feed them, provide health care for them. Police Benevolent Association President Patrick Hendry, who has been inundated with calls from officers' families upon learning of the plea deal, said it was heartbreaking and infuriating. He said their loved ones' sacrifice is being disrespected and they're being victimized all over again. These individuals masterminded an attack on our nation that only claimed 2,977 lives that day, but thousands more in the year since. And he's right. This doesn't even consider the people who were exposed to various things that day, who have since lost their lives. This doesn't consider those who had mental trauma, who took their own lives. Wow. Hope you'll join the conversation today. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Send your comments to the Furman Ford text line. You can leave a quick voice message, and your emails are always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Whether you're replacing a broken appliance or maybe you're just upgrading, you're totally remodeling the kitchen, when it's time to get those new appliances, when you're ready for them, you don't want to have to wait weeks or even months to get started using them, right? Well, that's not the case when you shop with my friends at Discounted Appliance Warehouse. With over 11,000 square feet and 1,500 appliances at any given time, you can buy today and use today quite often. I'm talking about shopping with my friends at Discounted Appliance Warehouse in Pickens. It's worth the short drive over to Pickens. Jeff, Johnny, Kyle, the whole team over there, they'll take good care of you. They have an award-winning service department, expert installation, extended warranties, and at Discounted Appliance Warehouse, they treat you like family. You're more than just a credit card swipe to all the team over there. Discounted Appliance Warehouse, they're proud to offer Speed Queen, the only washer and dryers with manufacturer's warranties that cover parts and labor. You owe it to yourself if you're looking for a new appliance to head over to Pickens to Discounted Appliance Warehouse online at dawpickens.com, dawpickens.com. My blood is just boiling today over the idea of those three terrorists responsible for 9/11 taking almost 3,000 American lives being offered a plea agreement. Somebody break that down for me. Somebody tell me how that's even possible. And who is this Office of Military Commissions? Why would they want to offer them a plea deal? I'm having trouble with that one today, I promise you. Speaking of terrorists, the Hamas top political leader, Ismail Haniyeh, was assassinated during a visit to Iran in what the terror group claimed was an airstrike directly on his room that was conducted by Israel early yesterday. His death dramatically escalates tensions in the Middle East, as you can imagine, threatens the possibility of all-out war between the Jewish state of Israel, Iran, and its proxies. It's also led to the breakdown of the Gaza hostage negotiations, at least for now. Haniyeh, I think I'm saying that right, Haniyeh, the de facto face of Hamas, was in Tehran to attend the inauguration ceremony of Iran's new president when he was killed. They described it as a Zionist airstrike on his residence, according to Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps. Israel has yet to comment directly, but Defense Minister Yoav Gallant did not rule out the possibility that war will break out across the Middle East after Hamas and Iran vowed to retaliate. Gallant warned, "We don't want war, but we're preparing for all possibilities." Now, this was a strategically done operation. They went in, and I'm assuming it's Israel. They haven't denied it. They went in and strategically took this guy out. They waited. They knew, and they've been looking for him for a while. They knew that he was in that home, and it's a bit ironic that he had returned for the inauguration of the new president. Iranian news channels claimed that Haniyeh was staying in a residence for war veterans in Tehran's Valinjak district, with the blast occurring around 2 a.m. local time. Khalil Ahaya, the Hamas official leading the ceasefire talks with Israel, said Haniyeh was hit directly by a rocket in the room he was staying in. That's how precise they were. They were able to hit him with a rocket in the very room where he was sitting. According to reports, it remains unclear whether Haniyeh was killed via an airstrike or a drone attack. The IRCG-affiliated Sabrine News also posted pics of a burned-out building in the area, claiming it was Haniyeh's residence inside the military camp. The New York Post could not verify the accuracy of the photos circulated by the Iranian outlet, though. Iranian state media, IRNA, said that Haniyeh's bodyguard was also killed in the attack, with officials launching an investigation on how the projectile hit the residence. Despite the silence from Israel over the attack, Colin Clark, a counterterrorism expert at the New York-based Sufan Group, told the New York Post that the attack has all the hallmarks of a strike by the Jewish state. He said no one else has the motives and means to carry out this kind of attack. Israel, however, always remains silent whenever it operates on Iranian soil. The attack that killed Haniyeh was conducted less than 24 hours, of course, after Israel killed a senior Hezbollah commander believed to have been behind Saturday's deadly attack in the Golan Heights, which took the lives of 12 children. Clark said that the fallout from the strike on Hamas's top political leader could cause an embarrassed Iran to lash out and overact against Israel, which they've already promised to do. Iran is already promising a swift retaliation as well. You know, Peg and I were talking yesterday about this when we learned of this attack. It's like there's this constant killing in that region of the world, isn't there? Do they ever get to the point? Let's take Iran, for example. Do they ever get to the point to where they just stop killing others and they use the money that they use to buy weapons, use that money for infrastructure, use that money to help feed their people, to educate their people, to build their country, to make it better? Now, of course, an escalation could mean that the war in Gaza spreads to include Iran, which it most likely will, and its terrorist proxies, Hezbollah in Lebanon and the Houthi rebel group in Yemen. The attack has crossed all the red lines, and established rules that were set have all been cast aside, Mr. Clark said. It brings things to the brink of an all-out war. Iran's initial response is most likely to come sooner than later. Iran's supreme leader, Sayyid Ali Khamenei, ordered a direct attack on Israel in response to Haniyeh's death. The New York Times is reporting that could happen any day. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned that the Jewish state will settle our score with anyone who harms us. This was during a meeting in Tel Aviv yesterday. He said, everyone who takes aim at our children, everyone who murders our citizens, everyone who harms our country, their blood is on their own head. And boy, did they do that. Did they strike strategically, took this guy out. Now, look, I don't know if they had just been waiting for this opportunity or if they could have taken him out before now, but they used this, if Israel used this as a time to show them, hey, you take out more of our innocent children, this is what we'll do. This will be our response. Now, the question is, will Iran and the other terrorists in the regions, will this be a deterrent? Or will this just facilitate more fighting? We'll see. Officials in the United Arab Emirates, which is a major power in the Middle East, said that it was closely monitoring the situation over fears that the entire region will be thrown in instability. The nation's foreign ministry said in a statement, the UAE expresses its deep concern over the continued escalation and repercussions on security and stability in our region. Qatari Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdurrahman, whose government has been leading the ceasefire negotiations, warned that Haniyeh's killing might have just upended months of work to help stop the fighting in Gaza and free the hostages. The Prime Minister said in a statement, political assassinations and continued targeting of civilians in Gaza while talks continue leads us to ask, how can mediation succeed when one party assassinates the negotiator on the other side? Now, again, they're pointing the finger at Israel, of course, but you got to ask yourself the question. They're the ones who chose to take the 12 innocent lives last Saturday. Was this a measured response? Was this a fair response, if there is such a thing? Is there a fair response in war? Iran's supreme leader reportedly has ordered a direct strike on Israel. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei issued the command during an emergency meeting of the country's Supreme National Security Council, which convened shortly after the assassination. Iran and Hamas both blamed Israel for the deadly airstrike. Haniyeh, who was the Palestinian terror group's political leader, wasn't immediately clear what options Iran faces or what they could potentially do. But military commanders are considering a combination of drones and missiles that would target military facilities near Tel Aviv, Haifa, and other major Israeli cities. This is going to be a time when we're going to see if the Iron Dome can fend off all of these attacks from all fronts. I've got a feeling that Iran and their terrorist buddies in the region are going to go after Israel with a vengeance now. The Iranian officials claim that their retaliation will attempt to avoid civilian casualties. I hope they mean that, but I doubt it. And again, I hope that Israel is able to defend itself from these further attacks. Remember, in April, Iran launched 300 missiles and drones at Israel in retaliation for the killing of Iranian Revolutionary Guard generals in Syria. Israel, with the help of U.S. and Jordan, intercepted 99% of the incoming munitions. Can they do it again? And once again, Iran is reportedly weighing a coordinated attack that would involve other allied militant groups from Yemen, Syria, Iraq, and potentially others. Khomeini also ordered commanders from the Revolutionary Guards and Army to get ready for an attack, to put together defensive plans in case the conflict widens with either strikes from Israel or the United States. As you can imagine, this assassination has infuriated them. It's a heavy toll. It's a big price to pay. Without mentioning the killing, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu again said Israel will exact a very heavy price from aggression against us on any front. There will be challenging days ahead. I don't know where that puts us with negotiations for the release of the hostages. I'm just afraid that we will never see the release of the hostages. I would say we have to pray for Israel and pray for Iran and all the others as well. Hope you'll join the conversation today. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Send your comments to the Furman Ford text line. You can leave a quick voice message, and your emails are always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. Tony writes on the text line, Joey, you said Trump needs to win the electoral victory, but if Republicans don't step up their game with mail-in ballots or harvesting ballots, it's going to be tough, Tony says. Republicans say they want to win, but doesn't adapt to how to win like the Democrats. Well, you're right, Tony. We do have to take advantage of every legal means of voting. And if that means harvesting ballots, if that means being a little more coordinated, a little more organized on election day or leading up to it, early voting, we have to embrace what the current law is and take it to our advantage. We can't walk around pouting because it's something that the Democrats have done. Appreciate your comments. Jeff writes, good morning, Joey. I was listening to your podcast, and I feel you misspoke. The U.S. military can take out any person at any given time on the face of the earth. It includes the guy that Israel just killed and Osama bin Laden, all of them. They just chose not to. That's a good point, Jeff. And I still wonder, this terrorist that Israel took out, did they do it because this was just an opportune time? They knew he was going to be back in the country, in that home, for the inauguration of their new president? Or did they just choose this time to make a statement of all that's going on? Could they have taken him out earlier had they wanted to? It's a good question. Christie says they were told at least minutes before by the bystanders and didn't remove Trump from the stage. Now, Christie's talking about as we continue to learn more about the assassination attempt of Donald Trump on July 13th. She says, I would hope that even the slightest thought there might be an issue that they would have removed him from the public, much less have people yelling there was a man on the roof with a rifle. The fact that the law enforcement, Secret Service, etc., knew he was there finalizes the issue that they failed miserably, or did they? She writes. Maybe they were told to let it happen. No one can be trusted these days. Well, Christy, I appreciate your text message. I hope that you are wrong. I hope that they were not told to let it happen. Interesting enough, a video was released yesterday that shows somebody, you can't tell who it is, but it shows someone running across the top of the building in the background. Now, this video was released by one of the victims, one of the shooting victims. And it's pretty clear. It's pretty clear that that someone was on the roof. Strangely enough, the video was released by James Copenhaver, who was one of the victims who was critically wounded on July 13th. And it shows this figure moving across the roof of the American Glass Research Building, the AGR building, just minutes before gunfire rang out. Mr. Copenhaver was sitting at an angle, and he was videotaping with his phone, I assume, President Trump starting his speech. And you could see right over President Trump's shoulder a person running across the roof of this building. Crazy. Crazy. Susan writes on the text line, Megan Thee Stallion, who kicked off Harris's rally with a trashy song about a certain part of her anatomy yesterday, was the main draw. A lot of people came to hear her and left once Harris began speaking. I think Harris is the next new thing and a flash in the pan, but we Trump supporters can't become complacent. We all need to vote. Yeah, there's been a lot of questions about the crowd. Supposedly there were about 10,000 people who showed up to see Kamala Harris in Atlanta this week. I wasn't aware initially that this Megan Thee Stallion, who is a rapper, I didn't know who Megan Thee Stallion was. I've been guest hosting the Mike Gallagher show this week, and I mentioned Megan Thee Stallion, and I thought it was a man. And I was quickly corrected by listeners of the Mike Gallagher show that this is a female. Shows you how much I know about these folks, about rappers, because I know nothing. But evidently, she is very popular, and there is reports that a lot of the people only came there to see the rapper, and that they probably would not have gone to see just Kamala if it had been her alone. We'll see. All I know is Donald Trump doesn't need a show opener. Donald Trump doesn't have to have an entertainer to get a crowd to show up. We saw that in Pennsylvania as he traveled back to Pennsylvania yesterday for the first time since the assassination attempt on July 13th. He had another big crowd greeting him enthusiastically in Pennsylvania. Paul writes, I want to thank you for reminding me God is still in control. Well, you're welcome, Paul. He is. God is in control. As bad as things can seem, as we watch things unfold in the Middle East, and it's horrifying to look at some of this because we know what the response is going to be. We know that Iran and these other terrorist groups and countries are not going to sit back and not retaliate. I'm just praying for that region that somebody will come to their senses and stop the fighting. I'm not blaming Israel. Israel did what they had to do. Israel retaliated only because 12 of their innocent children were killed on that soccer field. But boy, I just pray that God will intervene and will soften the hearts of people in that region, and somehow we can stop the fighting. But this is going to get ugly. We think that things are bad in Gaza. Texter says, Oh, Joey, sounds like Trump got into deep waters at this black conference. Maybe we need to tell him to leave well enough alone. Lottie, we don't need to hand our country over to the radical left. Pray for Trump, our country, and this election, and vote. You're so right. I guess you're referencing the group that President Trump questioned whether or not Kamala Harris is actually black. He has gotten some pushback because he said that she's, as long as he's known her, that she was Indian. And when it became politically advantageous, I guess you could say, to be black, then she suddenly became black. He got into some hot water, but I guess he says he stands by his statement. Texter says, I'll tell you what failure of imagination means. It's another Kamala Harris word salad. Okay, you're right. Texter, I believe that assassination attempt on Trump was planned and purposeful. It's going to be interesting to see how much we're able to gather on just what was motivating this young man and how long he planned it. I mean, we now know that he had been out there multiple times. We also learned that he had been out there prior to the event with a drone, flying his own drone around the area, I guess surveilling the property and trying to figure out where he needed to be. It's scary that he was allowed to do that, or that he could do that unnoticed and pick just the right spot to where he almost was able to kill our former president. Texter says, Joey, I wouldn't put it past Dems to have paid attendees to go. Either that or they were there to see the rap. Well, it could be a combination of both. I wouldn't put it past Democrats to pay anybody to do anything. Texter, Secret Service agents losing their jobs would not satisfy the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. Perpetrators must lose their freedom. Texture, failure of imagination sounds like a classic Kamala Harris word salad. Another one. We're all thinking the same thing, aren't we? That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined our mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Just click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, find me on YouTube. Be sure and like, subscribe, follow me on my YouTube channel. Just search for Joey Hudson. Appreciate you spending a few minutes of your day with me. Be sure and forward this edition of Just the Truth to some friends. Just click on the share button. Send it to a few of your contacts, because if we're going to build our community and if we're going to win in November, we got to build an army of conservatives. The way we beat Joe Biden is through educating people, and no better way and encouraging them to listen to Just the Truth. Hey, keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Your emails always welcome as well. Joey@joeyhudson.com. Don't forget to take advantage of the MyPillow special, $25 for the My Towels 6-piece towel set when you use promo code Joey. Just go to mypillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. We're back again tomorrow. Hope you will be too. Remember, God's got this. He's still in control.